Well, Donald Trump has met Joe Biden at the White House for the first time since the election to discuss the transition of presidential power. President-elect Trump then announced several more key appointments for his 2025 administration, including loyalist Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. Natasha Linstead is a professor of government at the University of Essex and says Trump's decision to choose Matt Gaetz is an astonishing move.
This really shocked people. There were other names that were circling, like Senator Mike Lee of Utah or Eric Schmidt, another senator. It's honestly astonishing, but I think this has to do with the fact that Matt Gaetz is one of the most loyal MAGA Trump supporters that you could find. He is in lockstep with Trump about a lot of things, about weaponizing the justice system, about just getting rid of this, what they call the deep state. Gaetz has called for eradicating the FBI and the CIA. So he's on the same page with Trump about what the vision is for the U.S., which is to really dismantle a lot of these traditional institutions. And I think it's also important to mention, Gaetz is going to be, if he is able to get through the Senate confirmation, Gaetz was being investigated by the Department of Justice for sex trafficking. So I think he'll have a huge vendetta of people he wants to go against. And he's also publicly said that he wants to pardon or have lighter sentences for those that were convicted in the January 6th uprising. So we can see what Trump's worldview is, and with Gaetz, they really are of the same mind on a lot of issues.
Yeah, given that he has quit the Congress, Matt Gaetz, and appears to have circumvented that Congress inquiry you are talking about the allegations that he was part of a scheme that led to the sex trafficking of a 17-year-old girl, would you expect there to be any opposition from the Republican-controlled Senate, or at least by sections of the Republicans in the Senate?
So this is really going to be the first test to see how loyal these Republicans are in the Senate to Trump. Under Mitch McConnell in the first Trump administration, the Senate remained fairly loyal to Trump, but there were certain issues where they were willing to go against him. This might be one of those issues because Matt Gaetz is not well liked in the House. I know the House isn't voting on this. I would say most House members will be relieved that he's leaving, but would hope he would probably go somewhere else than become Attorney General. But the Senate, you have many Republican senators and, of course, all the Democratic senators that think he is just a complete rule breaker, a moron, just completely insane. And to have him in charge of the justice system would be really, really scary as to what he's going to do with it.
And now Marco Rubio, he's looking more firm to be the next U.S. Secretary of State. How will he firstly negotiate the war in Ukraine? Because there are genuine fears any negotiations with Vladimir Putin would ultimately lead to conceding Ukrainian territory to Russia.
So Marco Rubio is more of a traditional pick. He, like you said, he's going to get passed through the Senate easily. He's definitely a hawk, but he is not a neocon, and he has stated that it's basically funding a stalemate if the U.S. carries on supporting Ukraine. He initially was in support of the U.S. providing military aid to Ukraine, and he has stated publicly that he doesn't like Vladimir Putin. So he's not one of the types of the Trump team that are sort of sympathetic to Putin, but he definitely wants to push Ukraine to some kind of deal where they'll capitulate and give up a large amount of territory in some sort of exchange for guarantees that there won't be any more Russian aggression in Ukraine. So on this front, he's pretty much on the same page with Trump that wants to end the war there. I don't know if Ukraine is going to want to agree to this. I think that they don't want to be pushed into a corner where they have to agree to give up too much territory. And then they're in a situation where it's basically like a frozen conflict where there'll be rebel fighters continuing to fight against rebel Russian forces there indefinitely. I know that's top on the agenda for Rubio to push Ukraine to some kind of agreement, but I don't know how likely they're going to be able to get there.
Yes, in that scenario and looking broadly at Europe, Donald Trump was critical of NATO in terms of funding, but are there concerns in countries that border Russia, now Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania and Poland with the incoming Trump administration?
Well, they're very concerned. I mean, I don't think Trump could have been more clear that if these NATO countries don't pay up, that he'll encourage Putin to do whatever he wants with them. And so that caused huge concerns along the border. Many of these countries in the Baltics, including Poland, were, buffing up their militaries, investing in better defense systems and structures, trying to recruit more men and women to the military. They're very concerned, and they have genuine concerns that Putin's desire to keep expanding westward, there are no limits. And of course, there's other countries that used to be part of the Soviet Union, like Georgia, that are increasingly concerned about this as well. And they have reason to be. That's the danger of negotiating with Putin. Then he's going to get more and more confident that he can just carry on with his expansion. And there's really very little the West will do about it.
And how will Marco Rubio then, as Secretary of State or incoming Secretary of State, deal with the situation in the Middle East, given how Trump has always said that, war is expensive?
Right. I mean, it's very hard to figure out Rubio's view on the Middle East, other than he's very traditional Republican, very supportive of Israel. And I think that he's just going to be similar in this way to Trump. Be supportive of Israel, to give Israel, and particularly Netanyahu, the green light to do whatever they want to do, whether it be that Israel aims to eliminate Hamas, that's probably first on their agenda, to at least severely weaken Hezbollah. And of course, Netanyahu has eyes on goading Iran into the conflict as well. I don't see a Secretary of State under Marco Rubio changing that direction or being more sympathetic to the Palestinian side at all. I would just assume that they would be more supportive of Israel to do what Israel feels they need to do for its own security.
Of course, at the weekend, there is the APEC summit, and both Joe Biden and Xi Jinping will be there, likely to meet. What do you expect Joe Biden to tell Xi about what to expect with this second Trump administration?
So I'm not sure what Biden is going to be communicating with Xi Jinping. I mean, the relationship between China and the U.S. really deteriorated under Trump. And there were a lot of tariffs that were levied, but Biden didn't really remove a lot of these tariffs. And so these trade relationships sort of remained very, stable. And there was a bit of a trade conflict that erupted. I think Xi Jinping is bracing for, and a lot of American companies that are actually in China, bracing for what Trump is going to do with tariffs. Trump has made it clear he's going to levy really, really high tariffs, particularly coming in from China, because he's suspicious of China's products coming in, making it more difficult for U.S. manufacturing. And it's just very, very difficult to know how bad it's going to be. I would assume a trade war is going to set off, and then that could lead to other retaliatory tariffs taking place around the world. I don't know if cooler heads will prevail, but in Trump's case, he doesn't really need Congress's approval to go ahead with issuing tariffs. And I think in terms of APEC, they're probably trying to figure out what the way forward is to avoid a complete global recession.
Okay, Natasha Lindstedt, really good to get your analysis as always. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.